Cunnington for the dream start.
Welcome to another episode. My name is Dean Vassey. You can find me on X at hashtag Kangas, Instagram hashtag Kangaroos podcast. Tonight, I'm back with the lads from the other podcasts. The roundtable discussion. Unfortunately, Bailey Tyson is a late withdrawal tonight, so we'll have to get him on another time. But we have Josh Neal from further north, and also we have Jason Hunt from the North Pod Show. Boys, it's always a pleasure to get you all on at the same time. But we've got a lot to get through tonight, so let's not waste any more time. And let's start with you, Josh. Expectations from all of us were pretty similar pre-season when we chatted. How did you see the season?
Geez, you're really starting it off big, Dean. I mean, they sort of met what my expectation was going to be. I feel like maybe going into the year, I was slightly under what people were saying. But yeah, I said 6 to 8 wins. I still said bottom 4. But I think from where we were the year previous to the season just gone, I think that was a realistic amount of improvement for where we got to. Finishing up the season, I was fairly happy. I wanted more, but I was happy with what we got in the end, only because I think that was a realistic amount of improvement. I think percentages up, doubled the wins, competed. But the thing I'm really holding on to, and I've said this in a few of my pods, is we lost 7 games by under 12 goals. And I think that's the biggest sign of improvement. We were competitive more often than not. We had some howlers, but look, probably a third of the amount we had from the year before. So I think we really built a foundation to really make a bit of a jump next year, but we finally built that foundation, which gives me a bit of confidence going forward. So I think it's a tick. I'm happy with it. It's probably what I expected, but I think we've laid some foundations to actually have a bit more higher expectation next year.
Oh, definitely. Jason, welcome to the show, mate. What about you? Any different thoughts there?
Thanks for having me on, Dean. No, look, pretty similar. I think similar to Josh, I wasn't going in thinking that we were going to make this big leap up the ladder. I was hoping and thinking that maybe we'd improve slightly, and that's what we got. You know, the 5.5 wins is the most we've had since 2019, which is a bit sad, but that has to be a positive, even though it doesn't sound like one. And similar with the percentage, like the best percentage we've had since 2019, which again, like 76.3 is not amazing, but it's better than that 55.8 we had in 2022. So, you know, again, it's sometimes the improvement is hard to see when you're just going through loss and loss, but I do think there were some signs of improvement this year. And I definitely think, you know, a month away from the season now, big picture, it's easy enough to say it's a step in the right direction. But, you know, at the time, there was definitely periods in the season where it felt really rough and like things weren't going so well. So, you know, there's definitely some things to improve on. And watching finals, it's pretty easy to see we're a long way off those kinds of sides right now. Like obviously we're 16th, so go figure. But you know, it's kind of hard not to see it when it's right in front of you, the skill level of some of those other sides that were, you know, playing off in September. But yeah, like I said, big picture, I think a step in the right direction, even though it didn't necessarily feel that way as the season was going for big patches.
I don't think we're that far off, Jason. We drew to the premiers during the course of the year.
That's
we should have
true.
beat them. So yeah, well, one good Jacob Costanzi kick away from winning that game. So yeah, that's one way of looking at it. But let's go to highlights. What about you, Josh? What were your highlights throughout the course of the year?
Well, there's a few to pick from without getting too crazy, because we did finish bottom 4. But I don't know. I'm trying to think of which win to me was like the best win. But I feel like the Carlton win, even though we gave up a few goals late, I was always confident that we had that one locked up, and they were junk time sort of goals for me anyway. But I don't know. I feel like that was the win where we really went out. We didn't just beat a Richmond or a West Coast. And I know the Blues weren't in the best form, but they were a much better list, or the expectation was much higher. I feel like the Carlton win was probably my highlight at that point. And yes, the Richmond win was better, but we're expected to beat Richmond. So I feel like Carlton was the best win out of them all. As for like player goals and things like that, I mean, you can't go past Cooper Trembath. I mean, I know it's right at the death of the season, but geez, who would have thought that he would have come in and kicked 9 in 3 games. So the amount of fun, that Richmond game being in the middle was so fun with Shees was 54, but then Trembath sort of, uncovering this player that hopefully can go into next season and do something, maybe not, doesn't have to kick 3 goals every single game, even though it'd be nice, but, we might have found someone out of a mid-season draft, and that was fun. I love a big key forward. He's leaping for marks. He's a good kick. That made me really excited. So there's lots to pick from. McKercher, I love Colby, and his second half of the year was phenomenal. So there's a handful from me, but there is plenty to pick from, even though it feels a bit down.
No, definitely. I mean, even third last round when we played Richmond, Harry Shears will get 54 touches as well, equaling the record. 58 touches between him and Cooper Harvey that day. So there's certainly some good highlights, and I think the most, like you mentioned, the Carlton, especially the Good Friday game. We'll go to lowlights in the season, and that's probably one of them during the course of the year. But to bounce back and turn it completely around against Carlton the second time we played them and get a good win in the end, it was definitely one of the highlights. Jason, what about you? What did you like? What were your highlights throughout the course of the year?
I think the first one that came to mind was that last quarter against Melbourne, round 2. And at that point in the year, we weren't too sure whether Melbourne was going to be good or bad or indifferent. I guess they turned out to be mostly bad and sometimes indifferent. But like that last quarter was a 8-1 last quarter. We smashed them, and we kept winning out in the middle like that. I think it was a bit of a false dawn for some people probably, but it was just a good feeling early in the season, get the monkey off the back and get a big win. We ended up winning by like 10 goals. So that was definitely a highlight. Certainly She's 54 disposal game is something that's nice to watch, a nice little accolade. I think watching both O'Sullivan and McKercher's development, obviously a year between them, but McKercher, like Josh said, I thought had a really, really strong second half of the year, really good development across the full year, and you can just see watching O'Sullivan, he's got it. I think his confidence grew across the season, but both of them, if they stick around, look like plus gamers for the club, which is really exciting. Zach Banch's little cheeky Mark of the Year nomination was a little highlight. It was interesting watching that lose on Brownlow night to Sam Darcy's mark, which was very similar, but I think you could argue he didn't actually hold the mark. But anyway, that's
fair enough.
It is what it is. And probably one that's easy to forget, and it sort of, I had to go back and look at some players and have a think about it. But like the fact that Elmac, before he got that injury, I think had a really good form resurgence this year. Obviously missed the second half of the year with injury, but prior to that, I thought it was great to see him playing with a lot of freedom, and it looked like not having that captaincy really freed him up. So I think it was good to see him back in some good form. And like you said, there were some positive moments, particularly, again, when you've got some time away from the season to think about it, there's a lot of positives, even if it felt like a lot of doom and gloom throughout the year.
No, definitely. Pretty well said there too, Jason. Josh, we've got to go to the negatives, I suppose. What about some of the lowlights?
I've got 2 for you. So no shock with this one. Good Friday was the lowest point of the year. We had 3 really bad losses this year, 3 big ones. And the other 2 were to teams that I didn't think we'd compete much with. So I'm sort of, those can pass by the wayside for me. That Carlton one, Carlton were 1-5, I think, at the time, or were they 0-5? It was something like that.
I don't think they had won a game. Yeah,
maybe it was.
Or maybe they won one.
Or they played West Coast the week before. Actually, that was gather round.
Yeah, they would have knocked them off. Yeah.
Yeah, so they were 1-5 or 1-4 going in, and we were genuinely, I thought we could beat them. I tipped us, we were talking a big game, and no, it wasn't meant to be, and it wasn't just a close loss. It wasn't even a competition at all. We completely choked in that, and that's the worst I've ever felt in a stadium. And there's some crackers on that list over the last few years, to be honest. So that was the worst moment for me. But if you want to pivot to like a personal one that maybe I haven't heard talked about when I've heard some of the other guys' reviews of the season, I reckon Paul Curtis getting suspended for 3 games was a massive low light of the season. And not just because it hurt us as fans, but I think it really threw off any momentum we could have got over those very 3 next winnable games. It felt unfair. It feels targeted, especially when you look at some things like Marbiot Chol getting off, Tom Stewart jumping in some bloke's head and getting a fine, and none of it really makes sense. And of course, it comes back to North. Of course, kick us when we're down, get rid of, I'd say, our best player at the time. Get him gone for 3 games for an incredibly normal football act. So that was honestly one of the lowest points for a personal, like an individual player this season.
No, it definitely was. I think we lost to Essendon by 3 points during
Port
that period.
by 9.
And it probably would have been a difference because he was in All-Australian form, particularly.
Only player with him and Jack Higgins to kick 2 goals in every game. And we lost every one of the next 3 games by 2 goals or under, I think. So
yeah, something like
great.
that. Yeah, so
that was a Brisbane draw too.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. So it was a very bitter pill to swallow, that one. That's for sure. And we could be sitting here talking about 7.5 wins or 8 wins right now instead of 5.5, and sort of saying, we had a really good year. We've gone leaps and bounds, but it was what it was, unfortunately. Jason, what about yourself?
Yeah, I think certainly the Paul Curtis suspension and the Tristan Sherry suspension, like both of them, suspended at times where they were in really strong form and they were playing really well, and then we lose them for big chunks like that. That hurts for both for them and also I just think for the momentum of the season. Obviously the beltings, like losing to the Cats by 101, the Hawks 85, Carlton 82, and even the Swans beat us by 65. Like we've got to find a way to limit those beltings because I do think that they do some damage to particularly those younger players that are early in their career, that they kind of get used to that feeling. I don't think we want them used to that at all. I think a couple of players like Josh Goda not getting on the park is a shame. Kelcom and Jones getting on the park for about 30 seconds. I mean, look, it's a shame in a couple of different ways. It's a shame for him, but also it's a shame that we didn't get a proper look at him this year. And I know we've contracted him now for next year, but geez, I would have just loved to get a month look at him so that we could actually make a more informed decision ahead of next year. Braden George, similar, didn't get on the park. So a few of those that you would have liked to see playing footy. But that's footy. It is what it is. I didn't love the way that we treated Matt Whitlock. And I guess it's easy to say that from the outside. Like we don't really know what's going on at training and what his reviews were like. But it's not for me the lack of game. It's the fact that he came in twice for a game and then was dropped immediately. I don't think that's that's what was required or what we should be doing with someone who we've paid a huge amount of draft capital for. I think we brought him in for the Good Friday game and he was subbed out, and then we brought him in for another game later in the year and he was the sub, and they were his 2 chances. So I didn't love that. And then I guess the last thing would be the form of some of our key senior players was really down. So Core, Logue, Scott, and I guess you could mount an argument that Fisher also is one of those players. Like none of them had good seasons, and you could probably argue several of them had career worst seasons. So that makes it tough when those players that are supposed to be supporting the younger players are playing that poorly. But I think that probably speaks to where we are or why we are where we are on the ladder, because we don't have enough of those good senior players to keep us competitive, unfortunately.
It's interesting you mentioned Matt Whitlock got dropped of the final game so they could play Aidan Core as a full forward.
It doesn't make sense.
I don't think Aidan Core's ever played in the full line in his life and has kicked 3 career goals in about 190 games or something like that. So, it was very strange decision by the club going into that last round. And I think you summed it up really well. Those senior players like Griffin Lowe, Bailey Scott, and there was a few others. There's probably only 6 or 7 that really showed improvement this year, and we'd like to see at least a dozen individual players that show improvement. So, fair point there. Boys, we've had the best and fairest as well that happened a couple of weeks ago. We'll start with you, Josh. Your thoughts on the BNF? I don't think there's any real surprises with the top 2 or the equal first. Harry Sheasel and Tristan Sherry. I thought they're pretty much number 1 and 2. But any surprises for you in the top 10?
I think Sheasel equaling Sherry's total is surprising, though. I think we all agree, and once again, everyone knows I don't mean this in a bad way at all, but it's probably Sheasel's most down year of his career. They burst on the scene first year, second year. He's got Nick Dacos comparisons, and this season he was still very good, and the numbers were good, but the impact sort of lacked. So I was surprised to see him win it as well alongside Tristan, but I think he top 3 lock for him for the next 15 years, to be honest. So that was a bit of a surprise. I don't know. I've just got them up on my phone here. I'm just looking at the totals again. I made a hot take at the start of the year saying Caleb Daniel will be in our top 5 of the BNF. And I'm absolutely going to count that as a win, missing out by 2 points. He's number 6, 2 points behind Jai Simpkin. We've had discussions about Caleb Daniel before. I liked Caleb Daniel, and I can see the positives that he brings. I think people are so harsh on him, but I think a lot of people would say that's a surprise. The way some people talk about him, he wouldn't have got a single vote in the best and fairest, to be honest. So I think that was pretty good, and hopefully that showed a few people that he is incredibly valuable to this team. I think he gets hard done by because he takes the hardest kick every single time. I don't think there's any coincidence the last 3 scapegoats every season have been him, then Zach Fisher, and then Luke McDonald, because they all play that same similar position and take that kick out of the back line. Other than that, I don't know. It's kind of how I thought it would be. I thought Curtis might get up a little bit more, even though he did have a month off. And I'm looking down here. Charlie Comben, 13th. I thought maybe he could get above like a Finn O'Sullivan and Nick Larkey, who missed a lot of football. But yeah, nothing too crazy here, to be honest. Good on Toby Pink, 14th, 121 votes as well. So, and there's a big gap from 14th to 15th as well. Dylan Stevens is probably one that I thought might get a little bit higher.
Yeah, I thought
even though
I know
he's been my guy for a few years. And look, I was just trying to ride out the train the year before. But this year he sort of came on, and I will take the credit for that to my grave, because it's one of the only things I've ever predicted right, to be fair. But good on him. Good on him. I think we would have marched Toby Pink and Stevens out the door last year. So hopefully that shows to the fans as well that, yeah, your first year might not be your best, but it doesn't mean you can't come back and be better, and give players a little bit more time. But yeah, that's sort of my thoughts.
No mention of Tom Powell finishing 8th.
Yeah, too high, to be honest. But that's fine. That's fine. He's got some dirt on Clarko or something.
I think you've got some dirt on him or something. Yeah, it's a bit personal between you and Powell, so I'll leave that to it.
You're always invited on the pod, Tom.
I'll see if I can get him on one day. Jason, what about your thoughts on it all? You sort of any surprises for you there?
Not surprises. I think it's a shame that Sherry, obviously missing those couple of games, misses out on the individual best and fairest. I do think, holistically he had a really good year. Interestingly, like Josh does, I did my voting for the best player of the year, and Sheasel won mine by 4 or 5 votes. But I think it's just that level of consistency. Like I agree that it's probably the year that he has stood out the least, but he's just so consistently either good or very good every week. And so I think that's probably how he ends up there. But I think we all know if Sherry doesn't miss, like Sherry wins the BNF by pretty comfortably, probably, because he polled pretty well in most games. Interestingly, I'm going to toot my own horn. The top 10 of the BNF is the exact same as my top 10, except for, I had Nick Larkey in my top 10 and he's 11th in this one. And I didn't have Caleb Daniel in mine. He was 15th or something in my voting. So he's the only one that is different. So it was kind of interesting to see it more or less, I guess, aligned with the way that I was seeing the games this year, which is not always the case. So definitely, there's definitely been years where I've gone, I had no idea that, Aiden Core was going to score that highly, or whoever it might be in that given year. Darcy Tucker, I think, polled pretty well one year. So I guess that's interesting. Yeah, that's right. I think that the only real thing that I go, again, it's going back to that talking point that I had earlier, seeing Griffin Logue, Aiden Core and Bailey Scott, down in 21st, 23rd, 25th is not good. The fact that Cooper Trembath beat Bailey Scott off the back of 3 games at the end of the year is a bit of an indictment. So that, I think, again, just reinforces, at least, we know as fans that the coaches felt the same way about their seasons, that they weren't, up to scratch. And I guess to give the club a bit of a pump up, the fact that two of our recruits at the end of last year in Luke Parker and Caleb Daniel both finishing the top 6, is a positive. There was definitely some people at the end of last season questioning why we're bothering with those types of players, like maybe Parker's too old and how much better does Daniel make us? And they both finished in the top 6. So that is a positive to take out of it. But besides that, I don't think there was anything that you went, oh, that's a big surprise. It was a pretty standard for Sherry and Sheasel. Cheryl, I don't know if Cheryl in. Sherry and Sheasel.
You merged them both together.
Cheryl, a great result. Great result for them. Cheryl's, yeah, I don't know. I'll workshop that.
That's going to be a weird AI Photoshop of their faces merging together. Fantastic.
AI can do a lot of things right now. I might as well get both your thoughts now. Colin McKercher finished off the year quite strong as soon as he moved to the halfback flank. Josh, do you think that's his long-term position? I really like him as a rebound defender because he almost reminds me of a bit of a Dane Zorko. He's a long penetrating kick, can pierce the defence, gives a lot of drive. I think he'll only get better. One-on-one defensively, not great, but I really like him in that position. And we do have a number of midfielders still at this club.
I think it's in the guts for me. I want him. A lot of people always talk about he's not big enough, but I look at a Collingwood's midfield and Dacos isn't big, Pendlebury's not big, Sidebottom's not big. They're fantastic players, but you don't just have to be physical when you go in the midfield. I think we saw, I looked to the second Demons game that we played and we lost, and the midfield was predominantly like Parker, Powell and Simpkin, I believe, and it just lacked any sort of dynamics. It's a one-paced flat. There's no dynamism in there at all. We saw him play a lot, maybe not in the centre bounce in that first Richmond game, but he played around the stoppages, around the ground and got 10 tackles in that game. He can clearly play in that position. And I think it depends on a lot of Hardiman coming on, Goda coming on. Does Daniel's got, years down there left? Does Fisher become a player? Do we recruit in that area as well? We are looking at defenders in the trade market. So, I think long-term it will be in the middle / on the wing, but that halfback spot is always there for him to go back to if he needs. But, I can only imagine, Sherry tapping it down to, Wardlaw getting the hard ball and Colby's, 1-2 steps away from just bursting out of a pack. And, if there's one bloke on the team I want kicking to Nick Larkey's chest, it's probably him.
No, fair enough. Look, I love seeing him kick the ball inside 50. That's where he's very damaging. And kicking not only to him, but Cooper Trimbath as well, Josh. So
that's right. And Jack Darling.
We've still got him.
And CCJ next year as well.
We'll get your thoughts on him in a minute. You might be the only one that's still on the train there. But
I'm back on the train. I got off and I'm back.
Well, you and Brady Rawlings, the only two by the sounds of it. So who knows? Jason, your thoughts on McKercher? Where do you see his long-term future?
A bit of a half-step answer, but I do think it depends on who we've got around him because I really like him off half-back, but only if we've got really strong defenders around him. He's not a good one-on-one defender, and you don't have to be a good one-on-one defender, but if you're not, you need others around you that are. And I think we probably at the moment don't have enough. That's why he often looks exposed in that back half, is because he is being forced to defend too often. If we had a really good team set up around him, it would be few and far between. And you think Zane Dorco, that's what I like to call him. Him in that back line, he doesn't have to do a lot of one-on-one defending because of the team set up around him. And he was fantastic in the grand final. That's a perfect comparison for what he could be in the right setup. Right now, I actually prefer him on the wing because it means that he doesn't have to worry about defending as much. And we can see him, like Josh said, kicking inside 50 and sort of being half a midfielder and half keeping shape as that wing. So, like I said, it's a bit of a half-step answer, but in an ideal world with a really good, other 5 defenders around him, I think he would be perfect in that halfback spot being that distributor. But at the moment, he just doesn't. I mean, I don't think he's ever going to have enough of that defensive prowess. He can improve, but I don't think he's ever going to be a good defender. So it's what can you put around him system wise to make that work, I think.
I think it's like with Caleb Daniel though, right? I liked what I saw from him, especially when he had McDonald and Archer behind him, and when basically every small to medium sized defender on the entire list is on the, in the injury ward. It really leaves those players exposed. You saw Caleb Daniel get caught one-on-one a lot, and Colby did as well. Colby got caught one-on-one a lot because he had to cover those spaces. But if Jackson Archer comes back, McDonald will be back in. We're going after some players who can fill those roles as well in the trade period. I think there's room for one of those guys roaming around that position to be able to feel that and actually be able to trust the guys behind him. And that means Colby or Caleb Daniel don't have to go, oh, God, there's no one dropping back on this guy. I guess I've got to do it. Jackson Archer will pick that up, or Luke McDonald will pick that up. Or the other thing I see him doing as well is, I don't know why he doesn't play that Dylan Stevens role on the left wing, and maybe it's because Dylan Stevens played well, but Dylan Stevens always picks the ball up from the halfbacks. So why doesn't Colby be that winger who pushes back and gets the ball off the back six and then can progress it forward? I don't know why he always has to start off the halfback line, but Dylan Stevens did his best work sort of around that halfback line as well and progressing that ball forward. So I don't know why that's not a role he couldn't play as well.
No, definitely. We'll certainly see how that plays out in the pre-season. But looking forward to seeing what his role is for next year. All right, boys. Enough half volleys outside off stump for both of you. All important trade and free agency period coming up. We've already signed one free agent, by the looks of it, in Charlie Spargo, giving him a 3-year deal. Maybe another delisted free agent in the Wolverine, Hugh Jackson, but haven't heard much about that lately. So it sounds like it's going to go through. Josh, we're also in on Jai Sarong, brother of Caleb Sarong from Fremantle, starved of opportunities at Hawthorn. Connor Budrick has played 45 games for the Gold Coast Suns as a rebounding defender. Bulldogs in front there from all reports. Sarong has played 10 games for the Hawks. Had a great year in the VFL. Any of those players tickle your fancy?
I'd like both of them, to be honest. Yeah. I think both. We need a couple of defenders. We need to get as many defenders as we can in, and not, I've always said I don't think the defenders individually on our team are as bad as it seems. I think it's more system in the midfield, letting that ball run through so easy. I reckon if you peppered Sam Taylor as much as our backline gets peppered, I reckon he'd give up a few as well. So, as much as I wish Toby Pink could be our, fullback for the rest of existence and the rest of time, maybe that's not going to be the case. A Sarong to me would be fantastic in the event of Griffin Logue not working out. And I'm giving Griff the preseason and next season to show me that there's something there, because I don't think we should write him off just yet. I think next year's the year. If he does it next year, I think he can go on to be a good player for us. And if not, it's probably time. But getting a guy like Sarong, he just feels like he can play that Griffin Logue role, but maybe he'd be a little bit more running. I've heard he can play on the wing as well. So I like him as a bit of a utility. The other thing I feel like is he's 193 centimeters Sarong. So not going to play on your Darcys or your Harry Mackays or your Ben Kings and stuff like that. But, you got Comben down there. You got Will Dawson coming through. Maybe he can be that utility sort of piece down there, throw him back there and play like we want Griffin Logue to, or if he does get caught up the ground, he can still be good. So we've just got over his old coach. I can't remember his first name, but Littlejohn is his last name, Mr. Littlejohn.
Andy Littlejohn,
yeah. Too many first names in there. But he with his VFL coach coming over, I really hope that that's a connection that can be made. So I would say 100% yes. And as for Budrick, I'm not going to pretend like I've seen him play a lot. I get Joel on the podcast a lot, and a few weeks ago he said he's someone that we should go after before it was linked, and he does this every single year. He always finds the links before they're there. He could be. I love Jackson Archer, but his body just does not hold up. And then when he goes out, Luke McDonald covered very well this year, but then he went out. We need another person who could come in. We're talking about Geordie Paynes playing down there and Cooper Harveys and things like that. What are we doing? That's crazy talk. Let's get another person in to back up, and he should find it fairly easy to be able to get into this team somewhere. So those two guys excite me. I like that we're looking at defenders, and I like that it's sort of mirroring what the fans think we need as well. We see the holes, and it's nice to know that North see those holes as well.
Jason, I think we were last in the league for intercepts and last in the league for rebound 50 scores as well. Seems like that seems to be a target, Jai Sarong and Connor Budrick. But Jai Sarong is a very good intercept player from all reports, and Connor Budrick does have a bit of pace and a bit of skill from the back 50. It seems like that's going to be the target in the off-season. Should we be targeting any player in mind that might fill a need there?
Look, I'll take any player that's got some defensive principles, and I think that's probably where I'm looking at it. Not differently, but I guess I'm not necessarily saying we need a defender, but we need players who can play defensive roles. So Charlie Spargo, who it sounds like is across the line, he's not an exciting game changer or anything like that, but he's someone that has defensive principles. He can play as a defensive forward. He can play as a winger who's an accountable player, and he could play off halfback as well. It's that those players that come with an ability to play in a defensive system and win a one-on-one battle that interest me. So either of those two, similar to Josh, I'm not going to pretend that I've watched their tape closely and I'm a big in on either of them. I think it'd be great to get one of them. I don't know that list-wise we want both, but I think we do want to come away with another player that can play a defensive role for us. I know we were linked to Jordan Butts from Adelaide a little while ago. I don't know if that's still the case. He's not out of contract though, so that definitely would be a trade transaction if that was to happen. I think what I like about him is that he's a bit bigger. He probably could play second tall because the challenge, Josh said, Sarong's probably a third tall. And a big problem, I think, is we've got Charlie Comben as, at the moment, our tallest defender, but he's best when he's playing the third defender role because he's the interceptor type. He's not as good in those one-on-one contests. Who I really think we need is someone that can play that number one play on the number one key forward. Hopefully that's Will Dawson in time if we decide to play him in defense and keep him there. But, it's very early at this stage to know if he can do that. So, yeah, I think probably for mine, that's who we need to target, anyone who can defend. And I think, there's obviously been a lot of talk about Dersma potentially being a little bit restless and wanting to leave. And the positive in that is if we need to get something done, he's a player that has some currency. A lot of our other players that we're going to be talking about, they don't have currency because they're not playing or they don't have that potential that Dersma does. I don't know that I'm ready to jump off the Dersma bandwagon, but if he does want to leave, at least we've got something to bargain with, which I think is a positive.
Well, I might as well get straight into it. There's a player that I might feel might look for a trade. Just a feeling I have. May want to go to Essendon with his brother if I had to take a guess. Josh, what would you want in return for a player like him if he did leave? Would you want a high draft pick or any type of player in particular? Nate Caddy would be nice if he wanted to come across, but I don't think they'd be stupid enough. Surely not Essendon would be that stupid to give up a player of his quality for Zane Dersma. But, what would you want in return?
I'm pretty over draft picks, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think we need to start if we're going to try and make finals realistically in the next 2 to 3 years. I don't know what an 18-year-old is going to be doing for that at this point. I think we've got enough kids in this team. We need some people who lack opportunity at their other clubs, like a Sarong, like a Butts. These are perfect. Butterick, I guess he came off some injuries and played a lot for the Gold Coast. But these are the sort of players we need to be able to pluck. Their age profiles are perfect as well. These are the sort of players that we need to pluck. You look at the Hawks getting D'Ambrosio, getting Choles, players like this coming over with plenty of football to play that can elevate them, even though it's not, they haven't made them skyrocket, those two individually. We need players who can come in and play roles like that to make us better this season coming. So I'm pretty over draft picks. It's a weak draft. The draft's so compromised. A future first and a player or something like that, maybe you could convince me on. But realistically, no, I want players. And look, Nate Caddy, yeah, sure. I mean, I'd do that in a heartbeat. But I'm not sure. It's hard. I'm not sure Dersma has that currency. We probably need to throw in something with that. But I don't know why. I don't know if Caddy re-signed or not. I think I heard someone say he signed another deal or he wants to stay, but I don't know what the Bombers have that I would want. I think that's my main concern from the Bombers. Does he want to play with his brother? I mean, you can play for 9 different teams and live pretty close to your brother, mate. It's time to grow up a little bit and move out of home from mummy and all that sort of stuff. Go and play where you got opportunity. And then, look, you have opportunity at the Bombers, but you have a lot of opportunity to be bottom 4 still. So I don't know what the Bombers are going to offer, but yeah, if something advantages us in a position we need in that right player profile, 100% do it. I don't know where Dersma gets in long term. I know people talk about the wing. People talk about, if I'm hearing Nat Fife comparisons, I look at that and I just don't get that at all. Clarkson said he's a Gunston type, right? But where the hell is he playing in that forward line? So I'd cash in now. We all thought it was a silly signing at the time or a draft pick. Talent-wise, I'm not questioning him. I think he can be a star. But at the time, we were sort of questioning, why aren't we getting a Curtin? Why aren't we getting a Nick Watson? And we're still crying out for those sort of players. So, look, if you can, I'm ready to jump off the Dersma train, to be honest. I know Jason was sort of opposite to this, but yeah, I just don't see him fitting regardless of his talent. And look, if you want to try and reinvent him into a winger, good luck. But if we can get a key position defender or a small forward or something like that, that has a lot of talent, I'm not going to take some second round pick. That's a fair trade for us. I would probably pull the trigger on that.
Yeah, Jason, now the Bombers have a lot of first rounders this year. Josh, and even there's been a lot of reports that this draft is heavily compromised, even early in the rounds. It's one of the reasons why we traded our first this year from last year, because we kind of knew this situation. What would you like if he did ask for a trade, let's say Essendon, or maybe there might be a 3 or 4 team trade? Would you want a quality play in return, or would you be happy with the first and moving on? Because at the end of the day, look, we've got a lot of forwards. We've got Trent Bath coming through, Larkey, Curtis, Zerha. There's a small forward, Costanti, or whoever that might be. I'm sure I'm missing out on a couple of others.
Coleman Jones.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. I can't forget him. I mean, we do have a lot of forwards. It's going to be hard for him to get a game in that forward line. So, and he is his best position. That's why we drafted him for. And we've tried him in other positions on the wing, halfback. It hasn't really worked for him. So, yeah, I mean, what would you do in this situation if you did ask for a trade?
Yeah, I mean, I would trade him if he wants to trade. To be perfectly honest, like I'm not saying I want to keep him at all costs, but I do think we're at a point where his value is probably only going to go down as the years go on now, particularly if we're not playing him. And I think we're right to not be playing him. To be honest, like his form doesn't warrant it. In terms of what I'd like. I agree. I don't want anything in this draft because we're not going to get, say, a top 5 or top 6 pick for him regardless anymore. I know he was drafted at 2 or 3 or 4, whatever it was that year. Like, it was a very high pick. But given the 2 years that he's had in the system now, like, some of that value has definitely diminished. If a team came to us and said, they're going to offer us like a future first round pick, and most likely that would be a team that thinks that they're going to be finishing higher on the ladder, and we end up with something like pick 12 or 13 in a future draft, I think I would take that, because whilst I agree we have heaps of talent right now, I think if we push forward and invest in some future drafts, I think it's a good idea to keep replenishing every few years and go hard every few years. We have gone hard now for, depending on when you decide we started, but certainly the last 3 drafts have really cashed in. So I think it's fair and reasonable that we could, sit out this draft, so to speak, for the most part, or certainly at the top end of it. But I'd take a future first. If the right kind of player came up, again, like position-wise or structure-wise, but you look at Jai Storong, for example. He wasn't a high draft pick. He's played 4 years. Like, in terms of value proposition, if it was a straight swap there, I would be expecting something back. But this is where you get into, this is what the draft, the trade period is. It's like, how much of a difference is Jai Storong in a 3rd round pick for Zane Dersma versus a straight swap? Like, it ends up being we end up arguing over the little things. Big picture, yeah, I would trade him for the right trade. But everyone knows that he's a little bit wanting out, and his form hasn't been great. So unfortunately, that damages his value, and we end up not with a lot of legs to stand on. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be tough to get real market value for him, but at least he will have some value.
No, definitely. I found it a bit strange, Clarkson, a month before the season finished, compared him with Jack Gunston. And then the last round, when we didn't have a full forward, just sort of play Aiden Core there. I know you mentioned Matt Whitlock went out of the team, but would have been a perfect opportunity to try Zane Dersma as a full forward for that game. But,
yeah, I mean, if the game was played in hypotheticals, Zane Dersma would be, he would have won 2 Mark of the Years. You know, he has all the hypothetical talent in the world, and he takes, you know, a really good mark every now and then, and you go, okay, this guy's got some really, like, he does have talent, no doubt, but there's got to be something around his work ethic or the way that his style of play matches up with the way that we're playing that just isn't working right now. So unfortunately, if Cooper Trembath can come in and kick 3 goals 3 games in a row, I don't see why Dersma couldn't do something similar, given the difference in actual talent is massive between those two.
No, definitely. But, I'm not so sure why it I'll have half an idea why it hasn't worked for Zane, but we'll have to wait and see over the next couple of weeks how that plays out. Now, there was talk about our captain looking for other moves another move as well. Was not happy at the exit meeting as far as I heard, but that's just third-hand information. It would be a tough deal to get done, I feel like, this one, Josh, because I don't think his contract's great if he's on close to $1 million a year for another 4 more years. But if someone sort of came along and said, look, we're happy to take his contract, but we don't want to give up too much, would you be open to that idea to get rid of his contract? Or do you want something in return if you did want to leave? Because I found this a little bit of a strange story, because a week ago it was reported that him and Jamarra Ugle-Hagan were meeting to try and get him to North. But apparently that's been squashed. So I don't know what's going on here at the moment, Josh.
Yeah, this trade window is starting very, very strange. I mean, it doesn't open. Free agency opens in like 4 days' time, and with the amount of players that have come on our radar and then have already gone is the most I've ever seen. So, you know, like you, Dean, and I don't know if you follow much outside of Australia, Jason, but overseas sports with rumours is something that I take with a big grain of salt. And the AFL is getting to that point. So let's just wait and see what happens with all this stuff. Similar outlook on Jai, I guess, is, you know, this story came out the same time with the Merritt stuff and the Curnow stuff, and I don't think it's the same as that. I think Jai's never said he wants to leave. I think he's just looking at opportunities, and I think every player probably does that at some point. He's just getting made public personally. I understand from his perspective, he wants to play more midfield. He's in the prime of his career. He wants midfield time. He's exploring his opportunities, but I don't think he would hesitate at all to stay at North Melbourne and play the wing role as well. And I think it's very easy for fans to sit here and say, no, you're not committed, get out. I don't agree with that attitude personally. We can't just kick everybody out, and, you know, this is a business to a lot of the players as well. I have no doubt that if he's back next season and he's on the wing, I think he'll be happy. I think he'll play well. But would I get rid of him? Probably not. I probably want to keep Jai Simpkin. You know, we need to keep adding on top of what we've got. We don't need to start losing, you know, players at this point in our development. Jai Simpkin is a really, really, really good midfielder. He can be fantastic. So, you know, when Parker goes, or when someone's not in form, or someone gets injured and then we trade him, you go, well, now we got Luke Urquhart coming in, and that's a massive downgrade. So, you know, if everyone's fit and firing, maybe it doesn't get into that midfield, but I don't know. I'm kind of happy either way. I don't think it's a crazy loss if we get rid of him, even though I do think it is a loss. I think we can recover from it, but I would probably rather Jai Simpkin in this team than not.
No, fair enough. I mean, Jason, Josh makes a fairly good point about, Jai Simpkin. That, I mean, we've all been in situations in the past when we've had jobs that we feel like we deserve better. We deserve more money, we deserve better opportunities, and maybe this is just the case for him. You know, he's copped the brunt of it the last 5 years, being the face of the club, or however long he's been captain, maybe 3 years now. And he's copped a lot of criticism. When a team loses, he's had to face the media a lot. So maybe he's just a bit frustrated that now that he wants something, like, give me more midfield time. The club said, no, we're not going to give him more midfield time. We're going to play the young kids. And he's probably said, well, stuff it. I'm going to try and look for other opportunities. But maybe he's calmed down a little bit. It sounds like he has, and he's probably willing to stay now. But if a club did come along and wanted to give a fair offer for him, I don't know what that could possibly be, would you be open to moving him?
It's a tough one because I think a lot of the trouble with this one is the fact that he's captain. It's the optics of that I think makes this a big problem. You think back to the Oscar Allen earlier in the year and meeting with Sam Mitchell, and like as it turns out, he's going. Like that's a different story because he's decided to leave. But in that situation, like 98% of that story was the fact that it's a captain and not necessarily that it's, a player meeting with a coach, because I think we know that happens. So I think the fact that Jai has, at least privately said, hey, I'm not happy with what I'm getting and I'm going to have a look. It's not great because, again, he's the captain. It's an optics thing more than anything else. That's not amazing. I don't think there's a world in which we get what we want for him, and I think that's the challenge. Like you say, his contract. If we're talking basketball terms, like he's on an absolutely awful contract based on what he is, what his output is. But he's also our captain and has guided us through a really rough patch of our history. So I wouldn't trade him just because I don't think there's a world in which we would get anything close to what the value is just one up. I don't think, like, we're going to say we want a really good player or we want a first round draft pick. And I think another team would say, well, mate, you're not playing in the midfield. Like, why would we do that? And also, could you help us out with the contract? So for that reason, if he comes out and says, I want to go, we're in big trouble because if he really wants to go, we've got no leg to stand on. And I also think we're going to get rorted on the deal. So I'm definitely keeping him.
No, fair enough. One word answer, though. Will he be captain next year, Josh?
Yes.
Yes. What about you, Jason?
Maybe.
That's right down the middle. Geez, you just show that
really,
straight
or
back.
should he, Dean? That's the real question.
I don't think he will be, to be honest with you. I think he would step down, to be honest with you.
I can't see him stepping down. I can't see it. I'm not saying that's what I would do personally, but I don't know. I'm not sure. And this is going back on some things I've said, I guess, about the club, but I'm not sure there's the balls there to do that to someone. I'll be so shocked if he plays and steps down as captain because of this. I'd be pretty surprised personally. I agree that on the surface, how can you be captain after, exploring your options? But he hasn't asked out. I'd love Larky to be captain personally. I think he's maybe more captain material than Simkin is, but I don't know. I just realistically, with what I've seen of North Melbourne as a football club, I don't know if I see him, one, stepping down. I don't think he'll step down, and two, they would have to vote against him while he's still in their locker room, and I just don't see that as well.
It's interesting because I was just thinking it through a bit more now that I had some time to think about it. Every year that's what happens, right? Like the players vote on the leaders. So he wouldn't actually have to step down. It might just be that they vote again and all of a sudden the players go, well, this guy was thinking about leaving, maybe we don't vote him in.
But
like,
do you think they'll do that though? Like
happen.
They're hanging out with him in the off season, they're mates, they understand it's a business. I just don't see the players looking at that and going, nah, not my captain. I think they'll be like, no, it's part of the industry. It is what it is. He's a good guy. He's a good leader. Let's keep it how it is. That's what I think will happen, not what I would personally do.
Yeah, I think that I kind of feel like it's somewhere in the middle. Like I don't think that they'd be saying, no, we hate you. Like, can't believe you've done that. I think there'd be an acceptance that it is part of the industry, but that by the same token, they might go, well, I am going to vote for someone who I know bleeds for the club and actually wants to stay here, and maybe that is Sheasel or Larky instead. I'm sort of talking myself into it a little bit. Like, I don't know how much of it I believe, but I guess, yeah, just thinking about the fact that they do vote on it every year, like that potentially is the reason that it might change, because he doesn't actually, like, he's not going to have to step down. He'll just have to actually have to get re-voted back in, which is a little bit different.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think time heals all wounds. So, yeah, over the next few months, things can change very quickly, especially if he does decide to stay and there's no more reports of him asking for a trade. I did notice he has gone away to might be Europe or something like that on his Instagram. I don't know if he's gone with any players. Seems to have gone with his missus. So we'll see how that
on the cover of magazines now as well. He's hit it big time.
Yeah.
If I had a rig like that, Dean, I'd be doing the same thing. So
yeah, well, that's right. I mean, you may as well make money outside of AFL football if you got the opportunity. So I definitely wouldn't begrudge anyone that looks for further business opportunities. Maybe not Kawhi Leonard though, Josh. So.
Well, if there's a fertilizer business or whatever it was,
it's about to go broke.
North starts up off the books, and we're just Geelong at that point, aren't we? Is Cotton On even a real company? Who knows?
Yeah. Shout out to Aspire. So, all right, we'll go to uncontracted players still. I know, Josh, you're on board the CCJ getting another year. Maybe the only person I know that would be you and Brady Rawlings. Zach Bench got another year as well, but we still have Cooper Harvey, Geordie Payne, Finbar Malley, Will Phillips, and Darcy Tucker still waiting on a contract. Would you look at giving any of those players contract for next year, and maybe which players you probably think, they should, that's it?
I would give Cooper a deal, and I would say goodbye to the rest. I think that's, and it feels harsh. Geordie Payne, Tassie boy, I liked what I saw, but I think we probably made a mistake giving Robert Hansen another year. That's probably the reason why he doesn't, for me personally, doesn't get another year in Geordie Payne. Even though the other side of me feels like maybe that's harsh on Robert Hansen, because we did like a lot of what we saw. He just sort of fell out of favour a little bit, but different sort of players. Finbar, I mean, I've said this a few times, and when I've got Joel on the pod, he hates this take, but I just don't know if I fully see it with Finbar. I don't think if someone has one elite attribute and the rest are maybe slightly under par, I'm not sure it's good enough. I think Trembath may have taken Finbar's contract and gone, that's mine now, mate. Unfortunately, with Whitlock and potential trades and drafting and that sort of stuff, CCJ obviously getting a contract and that being his secondary position. I don't know. I don't know how you fit Finbar in. Tucker, I mean, come on. Are you serious?
You should have been delisted already.
Yeah, look, thank you for your service. We nicknamed him the Tucker Box a little bit. I think I'll never forget that 0 possession game he had. But look, like you've pointed out before on your pod, Dean, when your team gets better, you move past a guy like Darcy Tucker. Back issues now, that's probably the worst type of injuries, worst region of the body you can get injuries in sports. And who was the last one here that I've forgotten about? Was there one more?
Will Phillips.
Will Phillips, and it is what it is. We knew Will Phillips is gone. Will Phillips shouldn't want to stay. We shouldn't want to keep him. He hasn't got enough opportunities. He'd be mad. When he's played, he hasn't been good enough for us. See you later, Will Phil. Good luck out there.
Any different thoughts there, Jason?
Nah, pretty boring for me. Like the exact same, really. Cooper Hart, I never thought, or maybe never is the wrong word, but last year, if you told me that I'd be saying Cooper Harvey should get another contract, I would have said something's happened. I've knocked my head. I've had one too many concussions, but he really earned his games in the later part of the year and played really well. So I think he's the first one I'd give a contract to. And it's tough because we don't know exactly how many list spots we can have and how many draft picks we're going to take in. So you don't know how many of these we have to cut. Like Geordie Payne, I could take or leave. I could definitely see him not getting a deal. And you'd have to think that those games that he got at the end of the year was a bit of an audition. And I thought he was okay. He wasn't amazing, but he didn't absolutely fail. Will Phil hurts, not because I think it would be a shock if he stayed on the list, but he just seems like a ripper bloke and a really good leader. It's just it hasn't worked out for him, which sucks. And Such a high draft pick as well. It's a big investment, but it is what it is. It's a business. I don't think we can afford to give him another year. Darcy Tucker, yeah, enough said. And yeah, Finbar's an interesting one because I agree. Trent Barth's come in and really taken what potentially could have been his spot. I think mainly what helps him a little bit is that he can potentially play a second ruck. I don't know if Trent Barth can do that. So of this list, maybe Maley would be the second one that I'd give a contract if we had another one to give. He really needs to work on his kicking though. Like he's a really good mark, and it's one thing to be a great mark, but if you kick one goal forward every week, it's not an ideal situation. So I think Cooper Harvey is the one for me, but we're going to have to cut. So, I mean, there's probably a reality where all five of them go if, we got a few players in through the door in the trade period. That's why we haven't announced contracts for them at this point, I suppose.
Yeah, look, I'd be surprised if Cooper Harvey didn't get a contract. I think it's between him and Geordie Payne, and Cooper Harvey's clearly in front of him. Geordie Payne, you've got enough forwards. I can understand that. We've got enough forwards on the list. We've still got Braden George to come back in. Eddie Ford got cut because there's no opportunity for him. I think Eddie Ford's a better player than Geordie Payne. So that makes the decision easy. It was either between Finbar Maley and CCJ. The club looked like they made a decision to go with CCJ there. Will Phillips, he's got to find a trade. I think he'll find another club. That'll be easy, but we won't get anything in return. And Darcy Tucker, well, that's criminal. He's still on the list at the moment. So
I think, sorry, I just want to go back on one thing sort of that Josh said. Like he makes a great point with Robert Hansen Jr.'s contract. Like at the time I was baffled that we gave him a 2-year deal. Yeah. And it's who knows, maybe he's going to do a Cooper Harvey on us, and this time next year he's an absolute lock in the front half, but it doesn't look that way at the moment. So the fact that he's got a contract for next year, and then like you say, like I think that as a bloke, CCJ, he might be a ripper bloke, but it just feels like we've given him a contract out of sympathy based on his injuries. And it's a business, like I don't know, we shouldn't be giving contracts based on we feel really bad for this bloke, so we're going to give him a deal. Like we didn't do that with Miller Bergman, who is in a similar situation. And I think we were right to cut for what it's worth, but I'm just as a comparison. So we're in this situation where we're dropping list spots and we're not a good team. Like we've got to really find some good players, and we're stuck with Robert Hansen Jr. and Kel Coleman-Jones on the list for next year. When I think, like you say, like 98% of the fan base doesn't really want to see them pulling the jumper again because we've seen enough. Like it's not a great feeling that those two being on the list next year, given the kind of growth that we're expecting and we're wanting to have.
Jason, would you have kept Teagle over CCJ?
I think it depends on whether or not we think Taylor Goad's ready. Not that he's going to play next year, but ready as the backup, if that makes sense. Because Teagle is definitely a more consistent backup. So I would have taken Teagle in that context. But if we think Go's ready, I think cut them both. But to answer the actual question you've asked, I would take Teagle over CCJ based on exposed form. Yeah, like CCJ's ceiling is higher, but I don't think he's ever going to get there based on his body now and what we've seen in the last few years. Yeah. And I'm not high on Teagle for what it's worth. Like I think that he's a real steady player,
Yeah, I agree with what you said though. Like I think Teagle, you get what you get effort, you get competitiveness, he can pop up for a goal. He's never going to blow the lid off, but he's never going to be atrocious. I don't think he'll be serviceable. I don't know. I loved CCJ 2 years ago. I mean, all through the season, I've said he's gone. Am I excited for CCJ next year? Not really, to be honest. I don't think he'll really play, but I think there is something to be said about him getting back into that team. And I know it was by a Tristan Sherry going out, but there were other options that we could have gone with there. And he did come back. His form in the twos was very good, and he did earn his spot back. And I think there is a player there if it all goes right for him. And I think a 1-year deal when you've got we got Jerry, who barring suspension hasn't really hasn't been hurt the last couple of seasons. Goad is looking pretty good. I think there's enough depth there to give CCJ that chance to just in case. I'm not saying he would have gone to another club and exploded or anything like that, but, his ability to play forward and ruck, his twos form was very, very good. I can maybe see why they did it, even though I don't know if he'll be on the list past his 1 year contract. But I think it's probably the way I would have gone for the what if still. And it's one more. It's like a Griffin Logue. It's like you got 1 year. This is your year. See what you can do. And if not, off you go and let's get some draft picks and let's do whatever. But it's not gonna change anyone's life. But I can sort of see why they gave it to CCJ, I guess, over Teakle maybe.
Yeah,
I think there's more upside.
Is we're paying him like $700,000 a year. Like
they would have changed that though. I don't think he would have got quite the dollar figure in his new 1 year deal. I'd say it'd be nearly a vet minimum. You'd hope not.
No. Look, I can understand it. He's always had potential, CCJ, and he's got that big body, and there might be an opportunity next year as well. If Jack Darling, isn't, I expect half a year out of Jack Darling next year, and then we can, hopefully the next player comes in, and there's an opportunity to be that second ruck that can play forward as well. That's what he's brought into the club to do. So. Yeah, I can certainly understand it. And it looks like they've gone with him ahead of Finbar Malloy. We don't know with Taylor Goad just yet. He might need another 12 months. And outside of that, we don't have much else. So, yeah, I can certainly understand it. But
I hope Goad plays more forward in the twos next year as well.
I think that's going to be the idea.
And maybe that's where Finbar has to make way as well because – I'm assuming they'll go in with CCJ and Goad as their ruck combinations. But I would love Goad to play a year of forward and chop out in the ruck just to make sure that when he comes on, Jerry's going to be in this team for years to come. So he's not moving anywhere. You've got to make this guy that Luke Jackson type to be able to play around him. So, is that combination of ruckman good in the AFL anymore? I'm not sure, but that's the way that it sort of works. And I was going to ask you one more thing, Dean, quickly on Claire's comment here. Out of us three, who's Garner, who's Riddell, and who's Carney?
I don't know. They're all pretty A grade. Look, I'd probably be Carney because she's probably the worst out of the three there, Josh. So
she's a veteran, Dean. That's small. I'll be wrong.
We're similar age.
Veteran status, yeah.
Yeah, similar age. She's 36. I'm 46. So it was her birthday the other day. Just to let you know, Josh. So yeah,
fantastic.
Emma Carney. But you boys can find out between who's Garner and who's Riddell. They're on
pretty happy either way, I'd say.
You can't really go wrong, can you? Well, let's finish now with next year coming up. What are your expectations? Obviously, we've talked about the start of it a little bit, Josh. Expect finals next year, premiership, top four, or maybe 8 wins or something like that.
Really nice. Yeah. I think 8 to 10 wins, and I want to be. I think our ceiling is 10th. I think more realistically, 12th-ish. Is probably more realistic, but I think that's a massive year. We're not going to be that team that explodes, and if we are, I'm more than happy to eat my words on that. But I just don't see it. I think we'll get there, but I think it'll be a few more years. So I want to be obviously ahead of Richmond still. I think that's a lot more easier than people make it out to be. Richmond had 5 wins out of nowhere, and then they had some awful losses. And that's what we stopped doing. We stopped, apart from a few, we actually became competitive. So we'll be ahead of West Coast. We should be ahead of Richmond. And the 3 teams I would love to jump. We should be jumping the Bombers. We should be jumping the D's. We should be jumping the Blues, depending on how many players they lose. But I think we can jump those teams. After that, there's questions. But if we're in that next mix, at the end of the year, if we can say, geez, if we just won those couple of games, we'd be right in the finals hunt. I think that's a best case scenario for us. So around 12th on the ladder, 8 to 10 wins. Let's start getting a little bit better defensively. I think that's what I would like. But hey, if we go all the way and win the flag, I'm cool with that too.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think we'll leave that to the women, to be honest with you, Josh. Jason, I think this year, 10 wins pretty much gets you 12th or 13th. Are you on board with that? Would you be happy with around 10 wins next year?
Well, I'd be stoked with 10 wins. I don't think it's going to happen.
You can't say no. Imagine saying no to that.
Yeah.
I know. I think, look, realistically, for me, like 7 or 8 wins would be nice. And I know it sounds pretty sad, but I think that's kind of where we're at. So just that incremental improvement and hopefully improve the percentage, maybe get that up into the 80s, which is just crazy. But realistically, I think that's what we need to look at and get that defensive structure looking more reliable. And by that, I mean like the whole team defensive structure, not the back six necessarily, because, you know, I don't know how many times all of us said on the podcast this year, it's just so easy for teams to go end to end against us and make our defenders look silly because they're in those one-on-one situations when they shouldn't be. So for me, I would hope by this point, Clarko and the coaching group around him have had enough time to, you know, set up a structure that our players can execute to an extent, and we can start to defend a bit better. And then I think the other thing I'm hoping for from next year is that we're clearer on the long-term plans for some of those players that we're experimenting with positionally. So, you know, where do Matlock and Chom and Will Dawson play long-term? Like it looks like Chom's long-term going to be a defender. And if that's so, that's great. But, you know, is that a long-term or is that a short-term thing? I think both for us and also for those players, it's important that we figure out where we see them playing so that we can develop them in those roles. And then, you know, if it doesn't work out, we can change our mind. Like I'm not saying that we have to lock it in, but I think it's important that we're clear on what the plan is, because I think as fans, we're like every second game, Will Dawson's playing at a different end of the ground. Like what chance does he have? And also, are we expecting him to be the full forward or the full back? Like what are we cheering for? So I think for me, they're probably the big things that I'm looking for from next year. What are you looking for, Dean?
Yeah, I think we've got to find an identity. It can't just be about winning, you know, smashing midfield, winning clearances there, because that's been our best quarters this year was against Richmond in that third quarter where we dominated in the middle, and against Melbourne that last quarter. I think you mentioned it earlier. I think that's not sustainable. Like we've got to come up with an identity, whether it's defensive, like you mentioned, Jason. We're flipping players around. We're changing. Look, if 1 week we get smashed and we concede a score, then we go the opposite way and try to be more attacking. It's just trying to find a consistency with identity in a game plan. And if we can find that and win 8 to 10 games, then you'll certainly be happy. Hopefully Harry Sheasel can have a full year in the midfield as well. Colin McKercher, wherever he plays, whether it's midfield, can continue to develop and finish top 3 in the BNF. So we're certainly hoping for that, but we'll have to wait and see. A Collingwood supporter came in. Oh no, a Collingwood supporter at work has been telling me for months North will be pushing top 4 next year. Jesus, he is a Collingwood supporter for a reason. What's that?
Must be an AFLW fan, surely.
And Claire sort of said, mentioned who will be captain of the club in 2026. We did talk about that. Mentioned it earlier. Josh said anyone but Tom Powell. No, he did.
Darcy Tucker for me.
Probably will, but who knows? I think Jason, you might have mentioned Sheasel and Larky. Josh, you said you'll be happy to have Simpkin back next year. But thanks for coming in, Claire. And interim PIUSNP. Strange username, but whatever works. Anyways, boys, it's been there's been lots of cover. Let's go to you, Josh. Where can people find your work and give it a shout out?
Further North podcast, all the good podcasting places. YouTube is probably my main at the moment. That's killing it over there. So please visit me there. Spotify, Apple, if you're an audio listener as well. We try and put out 2 a week. Might drop it down to 1 a week, depending on my effort levels. But hey, if we go out and sign all the best players in the league, maybe I've got to keep that at 2 a week. But all over there, Facebook, Instagram, all the normal sort of stuff. We try and post a lot of interactive things. We do some more fan Q&As, trying to do some live streams and stuff as well. So it's all going on over there, over at Further North.
Oh, beautiful. You got any plans for next year with similar this year? I'm not going to talk about the player you had on, but
I'm not too sure. Honestly, the live show is so stressful.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to go through it again. I want to do more fan events and things like that.
Yeah.
But maybe getting the player and all the audio stuff for a full live show is very, very stressful. If the people want it, message me and tell me, and tell me you'll buy a ticket and come along. We've done very well every single year, but I need some motivation from all the listeners out there to do it again. To be honest, because at this stage, I'm maybe feeling like maybe we skip it for a year or so, but who knows? I might start getting itchy feet, but at this stage, maybe not. But there is some cool things coming up, which I'm going to get a few more okays with before we announce this to the world. But a few more collaborations with some other fan accounts and things like that, and some good content coming your way. But a few things to work out with that first. So there's your cliffhanger.
Yeah, sounds good. You did get burnt by an individual too, didn't you? Where you organised.
Yes.
No, I remember that.
There's more to tell you. That went on for months, Dan. I can tell you. I'll tell you when we finish.
Yeah, that's fine. No, you don't have to go on more than that. So.
An absolute.
That's right.
And
that's the problem. Things like that happen, and it's very, like you said, it is very stressful. I remember going last year, and I've seen how stressed you were trying to get the audio and all that sort of thing working, but. I'm sure that people really appreciate your hard work there, Josh. So keep that going. Jason, where can people find your work?
Northpod Show on social media, and Northpod on any podcast platform. It's been pretty quiet the last few weeks, so don't go expecting anything that's been groundbreaking recently. But there certainly will be some content throughout the trade period when there's some more pertinent North Melbourne stuff to talk about. So you can find me there talking to myself for 45 minutes on any given evening. And I guess if you like what Dean or Josh are up to, you might like my work too. So give it a go.
No, sounds good. I don't know how you do it. I think we spoke off air, how you talk by yourself. It's been a lot easier for me tonight, just asking you boys the questions and answering. But, full credit to you, Jason. You do fantastic work. And, you do a lot more research than I ever would. So, well done for doing that. But any final words for you, Josh, before I let you go?
How good's Blaheem Bogue? Just the best. Just box office stuff. So... get down and watch the girls play. They're unbelievable. And if you want, the best player in the AFLW that we've ever seen, Blaheem Bogue, absolute box office stuff. Get down and watch her play footy.
I thought you were going to say Jazz Garner, but that's fair enough.
That's old.
No, just lives in her shadow. That's fair enough. Jason, any final words for you, mate?
No, just looking forward to the trade period. I'm sure there's going to be heaps of third round pick trades that are going to change teams' trajectories and that kind of
emergency
thing.
podcasts.
That's it. Yeah, looking forward to overblowing and overhyping some players coming in, and it's always that's right. It's always the most fun time of year because everything is optimism, and this is going to change our season. And then February rolls around, you go, we've still got most of that list from last year.
We've still got. I don't know if we'll be very active, to be honest with you, this season. But look, we've still got.
Come on, talk it up. We're going to be really active.
Yeah, the rumours will be active. I just wanted to start, to be honest with you. I think it's 4 days from free agency, so Charlie Spargo will be the first one there. Might be a bit quiet after that for a few weeks, so we'll have to wait and see. But Josh, thanks so much for coming on tonight. I really appreciate it. I'm sure I'll get you back on in March in the pre-season to do our pre-season predictions like we do every year.
Absolutely. I'm always on call for you, Dean. You know where to find me. And look, I love coming on the pod. It's nice to be asked questions instead of doing the hosting. I can sit back, relax, and just chat North, which is actually pretty cruisy.
Yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun tonight, that's for sure. I always enjoy catching up with you boys. Jason, always a pleasure, mate. Definitely try and get you back. Hopefully we get Bailey on next time as well. He's pulled a couple of sickies, I think, or something. He's going to have to get a certificate next time he misses out. But no, that's all good. We'll definitely try and get him on as well. But thanks so much for coming on tonight, Jason.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Dino. It's been a great chat. Always good to talk North with you lads. And, looking forward to doing it again next year.
Sounds good. Make sure to give those boys a follow on their respective platforms as well. That's it from me tonight. I should be back tomorrow to review the women's game and talk about that with my usual crew. But until then, bye for now and go Roos.